Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host. We're continuing along our crime spree. Reference from Without Conscience, the disturbing world of the Psychopaths Among Us, which can carry on over into other cluster B creatures. Dr. Hare tells us, in a lot of respects, it's difficult to see how any of these cluster B creatures, with their lack of internal controls, unconventional attitudes about ethics and morality, the callous, remorseless, and egocentric view of the whole world, and so on, could manage to avoid coming into conflict with society at some point in their lives. Many do, of course, and their criminal activities cover the spectrum of possibilities, from petty theft and embezzlement to assault, armed robbery, extortion, vandalism, disturbing the peace, kidnapping, murder, and crimes against the state, such as treason, espionage, and/or terrorism. Although not all criminals are psychopaths, and not all psychopaths are criminals, psychopaths are well represented in our prison population and are responsible for crime far out of proportion to their numbers. On average, he says, about 20% of male and female prison inmates are psychopaths. Psychopaths are responsible for more than 50% of the serious crimes committed. The truth is, the personality structure of this creature spells trouble for the rest of us. Just as the great white shark is a natural killing machine, psychopaths naturally slip into the role of a criminal. Their readiness to take advantage of any situation that comes up, combined with their lack of internal controls we know as conscience, creates a potent formula for crime. So, for example, when a dazzling smile throws a young lady on the beach off guard, a young psychopath like Jeffrey wastes no time in attaching himself firmly and finding ways of drawing all of the warmth, sexual gratification, shelter, food, and money he can, all in the name of love. When a young man of the age and type that appeals to John Wayne Gacy happens to apply for a job in his business, Gacy wastes no time in intimidating the boy into nudity, sex slave. And he doesn't stop until he murders the boy and disposes of his body underneath his house, where it rots. When Utah killer Gary Gilmore has an argument with his lady friend, he drives around with another woman until the urge to vent his rage becomes too great to contain. Then he pulls into a gas station, leaves his young lady companion alone to listen to the radio for a few moments, and shoots to death the first person he comes across. The next night he repeats this pattern. He describes the two men that he shoots as simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the way of his need to strike out. Then there's a little snippet in a gray box that states, a recent study of the FBI found that 44% of the offenders who killed a law enforcement officer on duty were psychopaths. 1992. As far as my own views go on this particular topic, I found it interesting at the beginning of this section where Dr. Hare mentioned that it's hard for us to understand how any of these creatures, with the way they are, can manage to avoid coming into conflict with society. I believe what he's trying to say is these creatures you'd think would come into contact with authority figures. I've been involved with one before that I suspected was one of these creatures, and I did fear for that very thing, because this creature was trying to push its way into my life, even though I made it clear I was just recovering from a long-term disaster and didn't want anything like that again. But it pushed anyway, and I happened to know certain things about this creature, which had to do with, number one, its driver's license had been suspended for quite a while due to a DWI, and yet it was driving around freely all over the place, and then saying, oh, I want to be your lover, oh, I want to live with you, oh, all this, and I saw the whole thing as a tremendous liability. I thought, oh, great, yeah, sure, move in, and then the next day,
hi, I'm in jail, I was arrested, please, it's $1,000.
And I was thinking, this looks like a mess. So I resisted. But I later learned that these creatures, with the skills that Dr. Hare mentioned, use these skills with authority figures as well. I was following the creature home one night, and I saw a police car stop it. And I was sure. At that point, I figured, oh my goodness, the luck runs out. This person's going to get in trouble. Oh, I was prepared for the worst. But guess what happened? Just a few minutes later, I got a phone call or a text that was like, oh,
I'm home now, and
my thoughts were, what happened? Because when I saw that police car pulling it over, I figured this is it. There's no way you can argue out of that. If your license is suspended, you're going to go to jail. Well, that didn't happen. And I've learned that these creatures utilize their skills on more than just their targets. They think that they're capable of getting out of any problem, and that transfers over to authority figures. And the story I heard was that the police officer asked for the license. It would be completely confident, completely firm, nothing to indicate any problem. So when the policeman says, "Can I see your license?" it would just, "Here you go." As confident as can be. And then of course the policeman said, "Your license is suspended." And it had some comment it came back with, "That's not what my lawyer says." The policeman had said, "Oh, well, here, you better talk to your lawyer." And they let it go. These creatures know how to play it cool. They know how to fake things because they're empty inside. And a person like me, for example, if I was driving illegally and I was pulled over, I'd be like trembling and obviously guilty because I wouldn't be able to help the fact that I'm trying to drive illegally and I got stopped. He wants to see my license, and I'd be giving away whatever, and I guess maybe that's a skill I could learn, to be fraud, to be a fake, to get out of trouble. My driver's license is not expired or suspended. But that made me think about this more because I figured at this point it should have been arrested by now. I had no idea that they had the skill set they use on everybody everywhere. Manipulation. They know it's wrong what they're doing, but when they're approached, they simply act like they don't think anything's wrong and, "Oh sure, here's my license," as if they don't have any concern in the world, and then their little act with the statements to the policeman end up getting it sent home. No problem. And as far as Dr. Hare's assessment of the personality structure of these creatures spelling trouble for the rest of us, well, that's an understatement. Of course it's trouble for anybody involved with it, whether you're simply a flying monkey that it manipulates to make it look good in front of its target, or if you're the target. But it's just like he says, a great white shark being a natural killing machine. It's a predator. So yes, these creatures do take advantage of any situation, which comes as a surprise to most of us when we reveal our true selves, thinking that that's the best way to connect with another person, because if you're phony, you know that it won't go very far. Like the story I read about the relationship, if you build it based on lies and fake information, well, it might as well be a building that's built on sand, and it's going to collapse. So we will be like, "Oh yes, I have this unflattering characteristic, but unfortunately that's who I am," and you tell all that if you're a real person. These creatures, of course, don't, so you're fooled into thinking that they're just like you. Like the great white shark, it does evil killing and criminal behaviors that don't fit with the image it's presenting to you. And it's true, they'll take advantage of any situation and they'll just explain it away to you. And if you dare to look into it further and say, "Wait a second, I noticed this and this and this," you'll be told, "Oh, don't you spy on me, just believe what I say. Oh, I can't believe you would do that." And then they try to play the pity play and make you think that you've stepped over a boundary and how dare you, when you've simply asked for clarification on an inconsistent situation. These creatures are skilled masters. They've had so much practice with each target they've played with and messed with, so by the time they get to you, assuming they're not 10 years old, they will have mastered a bunch of different techniques. Since they're typically mirroring the target, and let's say that you're a non-violent, non-criminal target, and you've expressed your views on people who do criminal behaviors, and let's say this one goes and robs a liquor store. Clearly that's not going to fit with its mirror image when it tells you, "Oh, I don't break laws either," because clearly it's broken the law. Problem is, somebody like me would be saying, "Hey, wait a second, I thought we talked about criminal behavior. You said you didn't engage in that, and you just robbed a liquor store." And that's when you get the,
"Oh, I don't do crimes anymore. I just robbed that liquor store because..."
Insert retarded excuse here. That's the way it works with these fools, and you can't expect to have any type of in-depth conversation or any rational debate about how you might say, "Hey, don't tell people you don't do any type of crime," when clearly you do. They try too hard to claim to be the exact opposite of what they are. I mean, it would be different if it said,
"I don't do crime usually, but sometimes I will."
And then if it does it, well, it's consistent. But these creatures will say, "Oh, I never do any crimes," and then they'll do one, and then you'll be lost, thinking, "Well, you said you didn't do any crime, what's that?" And then you get pulled into that retarded labyrinth of,
"Oh, I'm not a criminal. I just robbed a liquor store because blah, blah, blah. Oh, but I'm not a criminal."
ridiculous. At the end part, I thought it was kind of funny about Utah killer Gary Gilmore arguing with the girlfriend and then shooting a bunch of men and then saying,
"Those men were just in the wrong place at the wrong time."
Clearly shows their lack of empathy or even concern with the fact that they just ended another person's life. They're disgusting, and you're better off without them.
I am the Narcopath, and I love you.
I know you talk with TJ about rules and breaking rules. That's one of my specialties. I love to break the rules. I break them anytime I can. For me, breaking the rules gives me a rush of pleasure. I know people like you get excited about the stupidest things like a pretty sunset. What's that gonna do for me? Nothing. But me, I love to, for example, get away with robbing a liquor store. That turns me on to get out of that door and run my high heels all the way home. They never catch me. It's a thrill, it's a rush. I know you would never do such a thing, but you have different levels of stimulation than I do. I've got to do something extreme in order to feel anything. Sunset's not going to do it for me, honey. I need a murder or a thievery. Ha! You wouldn't understand.
I was interested when I was reading TJ's book, where it talked about a missing piece, and I guess that applies to me. Guilty.
Because it says that people like you, I'm assuming, you have emotional consequences when you do something you shouldn't. Whatever the hell that means. I take it to mean if you steal something, it's going to bother you for hours, for weeks, for months on end. And I think, well, honey, you are weak. I ain't got such problems. If I want to steal something and I can get away with it, I'll do it. I get a pleasure rush from it. Wouldn't have any consequences except pleasure. I don't know what's wrong with you. You must be in need of help. You must need mental assistance. You're just too weak. And when I stole that car, oh, that was such a rush. I just pretended afterward like I didn't know it wasn't mine. And I acted dumb and I unzipped my shirt just a little bit and they saw my teeth and they were like, oh, okay, honey, go on. I know how to get what I want. You have a lot to learn and I'm not going to teach you. You blew it. You spied on me. It's your own fault that you're all alone now. Hi, I'm Sandy Hoaxtard with TV5 Real News. I'm quite relieved. I was involved in a sex tape with Hillary Clinton. We were doing things, filleting flesh and putting it on our faces like this. Oh. A rumor went out it was on the dark web, and people were looking for it. Frazzled.rip, they ain't gonna find it. That's not the name of it. That was a distraction because the real video's worse than you could ever imagine. I was in it nude. You look out for it. We're introducing new technology to show to all of us. It allows you to change someone's face, which means when the real thing comes out, starring my beautiful face and Hillary's, whatever you want to call her, Hilda Beast, I want them to know it's me in that scene because I really went down on it. The idea is to discredit us. That's what they're going to try to do. Show you all this new technology that can change one face to another, and they'll just claim when I'm going down on that beast, oh, well, that's not the Narcopath. They superimpose someone else's face over the real person's. Huma, that witch, she's a spy. Be aware for that, too, and look out. Deception's everywhere, and I'm getting sick of it because that is the Narcopath's job, a close friend of mine. No one else has the right to do her types of duties. That's all for tonight. Thank you for joining TV5 Real News. This is Sandy Hoaxtard. Be sure to wake up.